to After Dark Creations Art and Review. I'm Jen, your artist and monster buddy, here to share my love of cult films, music, movies, and books with you. This week, I'll be discussing zombies. So, the piece I am currently painting right now is a Re-Dead inspired by the Re-Dead little zombie characters from the game Zelda Wind Waker. I didn't actually play this game, so I'm not going to review the game. However, I am a zombie fan, so I will be discussing zombies with you. Brandon has played this game. I actually remember watching him play Zelda, but since I didn't play the game myself, I don't feel it's right to review it. Let's get into talking about zombies. So a few years ago in the early 2000s, zombies had a huge resurgence in popularity. It was due to films like 28 Days Later and Dawn of the Dead, which changed up zombies and made them run, which was something that was new. Before then, zombies just kind of lumbered around and were dangerous and quite frightening, but you could always outrun them or you could outthink them if you were clever enough to hide. But having zombies become fast and chase you down really amped up the fear and changed the way society viewed zombies. So we got into this huge post-apocalyptic boom. There were zombie comic books like The Walking Dead. There were zombie TV shows. There were films everywhere. Zombieland was one of my favorite films that came out during that period. The part that freaked me out the most was the zombie clown, and to this day I can't really watch that ending because I just can't handle it. But I always found zombies very frightening. Karen from Night of the Living Dead in George Romero's original Night of the Living Dead, the classic that brought us the modern day contemporary zombie, the reanimated corpse. That character really frightened me as a child. I've always had kind of a little bit of fear of the zombie, and then when they made the zombies run and the world ending because of the zombie outbreak, and going to the theater during this time was a lot of fun. I was always a little freaked out by the zombies. I was excited to see how these characters would be interpreted. I was very much into the zombie craze. I enjoyed it. I read a few different zombie books, but I did really get into reading the Walking Dead comic book series. I read it with my older brother, Kat, and Brandon, and all three of us read it together for years. We were very much into it. I enjoyed the story. I loved the artwork. The black and white lack of coloration and the design of the world was really interesting, and it was a very unique take on the zombie genre. I enjoyed following a singular group of survivors that is common to the narrative, but what happens to humanity, how people change, and just the breakdown of our social systems was a really fascinating analysis in those comics. So I watched the TV shows for a little while, but I kind of fell off it, I think as most people did, where I wasn't compelled by the story anymore. It was just so much misery, you couldn't really take it. Now that the zombie craze is kind of past, if I watch a zombie film, it's usually Shaun of the Dead, which is a brilliant staple. I'm going to do a review of that film one day because I love that movie so much. It deserves its own review. And Fido, which is kind of a zombie comedy. It was really adorable and warm-hearted take on the zombie genre. There's been a lot of interesting zombie films out there, and a lot of people have said, the zombie trope is dead and tired, but honestly, I don't think it'll ever really be dead. I think post-apocalyptic stories have kind of taken a backdoor in writing and in novelization, so you don't see a lot of those right now. Their time is kind of past, but trends tend to come back around, so I think give it enough time and new ideas and the genre may be reinvigorated. As for the depiction of zombies in film, they run the gambit between even romantic zombies like in Warm Bodies, where they're not super duper gross. They kind of can look normal and then they can come back to life at the end. They have the very mild looking zombies to the full on zombie Romero corpsey, moldy, gross, skeletal zombies. There's also, again, people tend to forget that Romero's Undead series is different from Return of the Living Dead. That's a completely separate series of zombie movies. Those took place in the 1980s. They were very much comical. Well, some of them. The ones that came out, like the sequels that came out to those films in the 90s, were a little less funny, but still very creepy and atmospheric. You could even consider Reanimator has some zombies in it, because of course they bring back the dead, but they're thinking. The zombies going after brains was the invention of Return of the Living Dead. They wanted brains, so they both offer separate things to the genre, and I find them both entertaining. I'm excited to see what comes out. I haven't seen Zombieland 2 Double Tap yet. I have it in my queue. I'm gonna watch it eventually on Amazon Prime. I will get to it. I'm excited for it, but again, I didn't see it in theaters. It wasn't something I felt like I had to consume. I needed to see right away. It's one of those things that I can get to comfortably. I am excited to see what changes happen within the genres as old trends fade away to new ones. So although people say the zombie trope is tired, there are still a diehard fan base for them, and I really love zombies. I think they are part of the classic monsters now. You can put them alongside a character like Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Mummy, are classic monsters. Zombies deserve a place in that canon, and I think they are very well represented in cinema and movies. And yes, although the genre seems to be kind of declining and going on a downswing, everything is cyclical. Vampires had a big boom in the 1980s, it died off in the 90s, and then came back in the early 2000s. So monsters tend to go up and down. Same thing with werewolves. Werewolves had a big heyday in the 1980s, and I'm hoping for their return because, as I've said before, the werewolf is my favorite monster. And as always, thank you for watching. I'm Jen, and let's keep it spooky, friends.